Babylon. I mean, just the name itself conjures up these incredible images, right? You think of legendary towers, powerful kings, ancient prophecies. But what if I told you that behind all that myth, there's the story of a real city, a metropolis that was for a long, long time the absolute center of the world? So let's dig in and try to separate the facts from the fables to find the real Babylon. At its peak, Babylon was just breathtaking. Seriously, just try to imagine walking up to a gate like this one, the Ishtar Gate, covered in these brilliant blue glazed bricks with carvings of lions and dragons everywhere. It was a massive statement of power, of wealth, and of divine favor. For centuries, this was it, the undisputed capital of civilization. But if you go to that exact same spot today in modern-day Iraq, this is what you'd see. Sun-baked ruins, crumbling brick, pretty much the ghost of a city, swallowed by sand and time. It's such a stark contrast, it's almost hard to believe it's the same place. So you have to ask, right? How does the greatest city in the world become a ruin? What on earth happened to Babylon? Well, to answer that, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning. And, this whole contrast, this double identity, it starts with the name itself. In the local language, Akkadian, Babylon meant something really majestic, Gate of the Gods. But in Hebrew, because of that famous story about the Tower of Babel, the name Bavel came to mean confusion. So right from the get-go, Babylon had this split personality, a divine center of power, and at the same time, a symbol of human pride and total chaos. So let's start with the city's incredible rise to the top. And it's really the story of one man and one totally revolutionary idea. You see, for a long time, Babylon was, well, it wasn't a big deal. Just another town on the Euphrates River. But then, in 1792 BCE, this relatively unknown prince from a neighboring tribe, an Amorite named Hammurabi, becomes king. And he had a vision for Babylon that was bigger than anyone could have possibly imagined. Hammurabi's secret weapon wasn't just his army, it was order. He created one of the world's very first comprehensive legal codes, a whole set of rules carved into stone for everyone to see. And this wasn't just some simple do this, don't do that list. It was a complex system designed to run an entire society, and it came centuries before the famous Mosaic Law from the Bible. So, armed with his laws and a brilliant strategy that mixed diplomacy with war, Hammurabi did what no one had ever done before. He united all of Mesopotamia, that whole region between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, all under the rule of Babylon. In less than 40 years, he took his minor city-state and turned it into the largest, most powerful city on the entire planet. All right, now let's jump forward more than 1,000 years to its absolute peak, its golden age. This was the period that gave us the wonders that ancient writers would be talking about for centuries to come. The Greek historian Herodotus, you can just feel the sheer awe in his writing when he talks about Babylon. I mean, even if he exaggerated some of the details, his description really captures what it must have felt like to see it. He talks about a city of unmatched magnificence, protected by this massive wall and a deep, wide moat. This wasn't just a city, it was a fortress, a true wonder of engineering. And it was gigantic. During the reign of its most famous king, Nebuchadnezzar II, the city stretched over 900 hectares. Now, to put that in perspective for you, that's roughly the size of 1,700 American football fields. This was an urban sprawl on a scale the ancient world had just never seen. Nebuchadnezzar II was an absolute master builder, and the Ishtar Gate was his masterpiece. It wasn't just an entrance, it was the beginning of this grand processional way, a sacred road where they'd parade statues of the gods during festivals. Every single detail was designed to fill you with awe for the city and its main god, Marduk. But of all the wonders of Babylon, one is way more famous than any other. And here's the crazy part. It might not have even been there at all. I'm talking, of course, about the Hanging Gardens. The legend, described here by the ancient writer Diodorus Siculus, it's fantastic. A man-made mountain of lush greenery right in the middle of the desert. It was supposedly built on these rising terraces, kind of like a theater, with stone beams waterproofed with lead and irrigated by these complex, hidden machines that lifted water all the way up from the river. I mean, a true wonder of the ancient world. But, and this is a huge but, for all the amazing stories, archaeologists have found zero physical proof of these gardens in Babylon. Nothing. And this has led a historian named Stephanie Dalley to a fascinating theory. What if the legend is true, but the location is wrong? She argues the gardens were actually in Nineveh, the capital of Babylon's arch-rivals, the Assyrians. And the builder wasn't a Babylonian king, but the Assyrian king Sennacherib, whose own records describe palace gardens that match the legend almost perfectly. It could be one of history's biggest cases of mistaken identity. So whether the gardens were there or not, Babylon's golden age couldn't last forever, and the city's fall, well, it was every bit as dramatic as its rise. Now, this didn't happen overnight. It was a long, slow process that played out over centuries. It all really kicks off with the Persian conquest in 539 BCE. Then, a couple centuries later, Alexander the Great shows up, dreaming of restoring it. But the tide had already turned. By 141 BCE, the city was mostly abandoned. And finally, by about 650 CE, mighty Babylon was almost totally buried and forgotten. The beginning of the end came with an act of incredible military genius. It's 539 BCE, and Cyrus the Great of Persia is laying siege to this supposedly impregnable city. So what does his army do? They divert the entire Euphrates River, making it shallow enough to walk through. Then, while all the Babylonians are distracted by a huge religious festival, the Persian soldiers just waded into the city, through the riverbed, right under the walls, and took it almost without a fight. 200 years later, another legendary conqueror, Alexander the Great, stood in Babylon. But he didn't want to destroy it. He wanted to restore it. He actually ordered his men to tear down the top of the Great Ziggurat. That's the massive temple that probably inspired the Tower of Babel myth. So he could rebuild it even grander than before. But, as the historian Stephen Bertman says, he died right there in Babylon before he could ever finish the project. It was pretty much the last real chance the city had for a comeback. So the city died. It was abandoned, buried by sand. But its ideas? Well, they are very much alive. Let's talk about Babylon's true, lasting legacy. This might be the most surprising part of the whole story. We are living with Babylon's legacy every single day. Ever wonder why there are 60 seconds in a minute or 60 minutes in an hour? That's Babylonian base 60 math. The 360 degrees in a circle? Yep, that's them too. Their advanced astronomy gave us the zodiac, and their mathematics laid the groundwork for theorems that other people would get credit for centuries later. And what's amazing is that even after its military power was gone, Babylon's influence as a center of learning just grew. For 200 years under Persian rule, it was like the world's greatest university. It's now thought that the earliest Greek thinkers, we're talking people like Thales and Pythagoras, the fathers of Western philosophy and math, may have actually studied Babylonian ideas and worked them into their own world-changing theories. So Babylon's body may be gone, but its mind lives on in our clocks, our calendars, our classrooms. And that forces us to ask a final, pretty humbling question. If a civilization that was this powerful, this brilliant, this important, could end up completely buried by the desert, what will our civilization leave behind? What will be our lasting echo?